So I open the floor to the panel. Anyone have any questions? Yes, Miranda Workman.
My question is for Linda. In your presentation discussing feeding, I noted almost singularly cats were being fed out of bowls in those pictures. As a behavior modification person and seeing a lot of obese cats, what is your position on using food toys as an alternative feeding option for those cats?
I think that feeding toys are great. Probably they're more universally used today with dogs than with cats. In fact, there are a number of dogs that are fed exclusively that way with their feeding treat balls. Probably the only concern I'd have with a cat, and this is kind of that balance between we are trying to get more and more cats going to a wet diet, so you can't feed a wet diet in a treat ball. So if, however, the cat, you can maintain weight, you don't have any problems with urinary tract disease, I think it's totally fine, to use a treat ball for them.
I have a number of quick questions from the audience and pertaining to diet, so let's do them in order and with relatively short answers. One question is the source of taurine in cat's diet strictly from rodents? And if so, how would it be listed? And I believe you already addressed that, but go ahead and answer.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Is taurine come from rodents?
And only from rodents?
Oh, no. I might have misspoken or misled. No, taurine is in animal-based protein sources. So the implications of that, or the importance of that, is that cats need some source of animal-sourced protein, beef, pork, chicken, in their diet, and they cannot exist unless taurine's included as a purified nutrient. They cannot thrive on a diet that's just plant-based and a vegetarian diet.
And by animal, to be clear, it can be invertebrate. Animal is in the broad sense of the word.
Yeah, it's
animal.
flesh, basically.
Flesh. So another question is about the advisability of feeding whole flesh, whole animals, and or at least meat products rather than prepared cat diets. Do you have an opinion on that?
Again, you might need to clarify. Do you mean feeding mice?
Feeding mice, and or one question pertained to feeding mice, but the other question pertained to just feeding meat as opposed to cat food.
Oh, certainly. Well, just feeding meat would just be the flesh of the meat, and it would not be balanced. We can and do create raw diets. It's a way of feeding that's increasing. Right now, it's only about 5% of pet owners feed a raw diet, but it's the fastest growing segment of the pet food industry, so you can bet you're going to see more and more commercial raw diets coming on the market. So we can balance those, but just if you just fed flesh, if you just fed muscle meat, that would be imbalanced. Because again, when a cat hunts, they consume most of their prey, which includes both the gastrointestinal tract, includes the organs, and includes bone, which you would not have if you were just feeding meat that you purchase from the supermarket.
Another question was that you said that they need not have carb, but you didn't say that they cannot metabolize carbs.
Exactly, and I think that's where, again, we take a little bit of knowledge and we we run with it. And that's what's happened with the whole carb issue, is that just because they can survive on a no-carb diet doesn't mean that they have to. There is some evidence that feeding at least lower carbohydrates can be efficacious in terms of cats who are already diabetic and monitoring that, and also for weight loss. We don't know if feeding a low-carb diet, calorie for calorie, if you take a food that has the same caloric density and has carbs and compare that to a high-protein, low-fat food that has low carbs, if it has the same calories, we don't know that one may prevent obesity better than another. Theoretically they shouldn't, because calories are calories. However, we are finding that there are some benefits for some cats in a lower carb diet.
And one last question from related to this is, what about a vegetarian cat diet? I think you touched on that by hinting.
I did, yeah. And a vegetarian cat diet is possible as long as the nutrients that come from animal flesh. There's several. I didn't have the time to talk about all of them. One was taurine, another is a fatty acid called arachidonic acid, and also vitamin A. Cats cannot get their vitamin A from retinoids, from carotene, which is in plants, they have to have a preformed source of vitamin A, which typically comes from liver or other types of organ meats.
But
So-
Linda, is there a source of taurine other than animal?
Right, you could add purified taurines.
But where does it come from?
It's synthetic.
Oh,
Yeah.
synthesized taurine, so
Right.
one need not derive it from an animal source, and
Right, you can add purified. And actually, that's a good point. I'm pretty sure there's synthetic taurine, but you may write taurine that actually originated from an
if the
animal.
taurine originates from an animal, then of
Right.
course
It's not technically.
you're not technically serving the goal. But beyond, I mean, I think the audience wants to know what is your opinion of a vegetarian diet.
My personal opinion is that the cat is a carnivore, and so they're best fed as a carnivore. So.
Okay, I know there's questions from the panel. Barbara Carr had a question.
All of us that work in shelters certainly seem to think that there's a huge connection between declawed cats and not using the litter box. But I don't hear that from veterinarians, and I'm wondering why.
Well, because there are 3 studies on declawing and behavior problems, and none of them found that. So I think that people who don't want their furniture scratched are more likely to give up on a cat. And most declawed cats are indoor cats, and we know indoor cats have more problems. So I think that's the reason, because there was a big study done in Canada. I did a couple of studies, one online, and one the practice here in Western New York. And what we found was that declawed cats were more likely to jump on counters, which again made me think that people who mind having cat hair in their salad are more likely to declaw their cats. So they're epidemiologically, there are shelters in areas where I think they must have veterinarians who use those nail clippers to do the claws, because there'll be a real concentration of declawed cats who have infected paws, or the good reason why they don't want to scratch. But it doesn't seem to be a problem.
I hope you students are hearing there's yet another study to be done there. Yes. Frank Mendel has a question.
This is back for Linda again. Is there a way to feed wet diets to cats and still address the dental hygiene problem, plaque development?
That's a very good question. First of all, when cats eat dry food, there's really not good evidence that feeding a dry food prevents periodontal disease or plaque buildup. What prevents plaque buildup in dogs is giving them ample opportunity to chew many items. In cats, it would be prey, much like you talked about yesterday. And cats don't chew on toys like dogs do. One of the things that I'm kind of interested in is that when Miranda mentioned the treat balls, if you see some cats will bite at those. But I don't know if they ever actually bite at them to the same degree they use that shearing motion when they're dissecting prey. So I guess my short answer would be, I don't think that dry food provides that benefit anyway. There's also some evidence, another study for the students, that a raw diet might actually be more preventative of plaque buildup than a dry diet. Jury's still out on that, but there is some small amount of evidence of that. So I guess the answer is no. I don't think there is, because I don't think dry diets provide that benefit.
Marsha Levine.
Anecdotally, we can say that the dental diets do appear to have be a great help in minimizing tartar buildup in cats. That being said, I think you can get the best of both worlds by feeding mostly canned food and supplementing it with the dental diets. The other thing I've noticed over the years is that the dry diets many people think will prevent tartar buildup, but in actuality, I think it's more the nature of the cat than the actual diet, and those that eat dry food are actually eating more frequently and therefore may actually be building up more tartar. It's another theory I've had over the years. And lastly, I just have to make a comment about the raw diets. I know that they're coming into fashion now. Recently, it was either American Animal Hospital Association or the AVMA that came out with a very, very strong position statement. Both of them advising against this. not only for the sake of the cat, but also the worry that if the cat becomes infected, it could pass on a disease to the owner. So I'm not sure that there are good reasons to be using these raw diets. I know they're very popular right now, or becoming more popular, but they've done a lot of research behind that, and for them to come out so strongly opposed to it, I think bears mentioning.
And I think an important thing to say about raw diets is that there's absolutely no evidence that a raw diet has the benefits that are claimed for it.
Right.
And the benefits that are claimed of it are immense. Better immunity, better skin, no allergies, it just goes on and on. And there's no data showing that a well-balanced dry diet or canned diet that's cooked does not provide, or that a raw diet provides benefits that a well-balanced commercial or even homemade diet that's cooked cannot provide. They certainly can provide the nutrition that we can provide in a cooked diet, because we know we can make a homemade diet that provides good nutrition. We have that knowledge, but what we don't have data, and I strongly suspect the data won't show this, is all the claims that are being made for raw diets. It's all anecdotal. Raw diets are almost a religious experience right now. It's a very, very, very strong feelings about their benefits. And I personally, I think there are reasons other than have to do with nutrition, because feeding our animals, it's such a caretaking and nurturing way in which we interact with them, that I think that food can often take on attributes that beyond what the food actually has, because we want so dearly to be able to affect our cat's health. And food is one of the ways we can do that, by selecting what we feed.
Thank you. May I address a question to you, Marcia Levine, or anyone else? You mentioned the increasing list of immunocompromised humans. Can we presume that's because we just have increasing knowledge? It's not because we're suddenly becoming increasingly frail?
Well, I think we've always known that people with chronic illnesses probably have an impaired immune system, but we've added to that the transplant patients that are on strong immunosuppressive drugs, and the plethora of biologics now that are on the market, and all of those suppress the immune system. If you listen to the commercials on TV, you have to be tested for TB first, and so we know that these are all suppressing the immune system. So it's just a matter of thinking outside the box, that the immune-compromised person is no longer just the transplant patient or the AIDS patient, but there are a lot of people walking amongst us that are on these drugs for a variety of chronic diseases, and they need to just
Is it true that pregnancy, a human being who's pregnant is immunocompromised?
Well, some people say that. I'm not sure if the pregnant person is immunocompromised or the fetus is immunocompromised. That's really beyond.
But you often see warnings near animal facilities: if you're pregnant, beware.
Right,
right.
It may be to protect the fetus. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, there's a lot going on with the immune system during pregnancy, so perhaps they are. But I think the biggest concern is for the fetus.
Good. Any other questions? Well, so I'm going to take my the privilege of moderator to declare this symposium a success. And it is at least a very good dialogue, and in fact, we've transitioned from discussing cats in context to cats in perspectives, and we've had so many very interesting perspectives, and we've accomplished our goal of cross-fertilizing across disciplines. One of the things that I conclude the most from this symposium is that we need a second one, because we need at least another equally long day just to answer the many questions that have been raised. But these are excellent questions, and they all need to be answered, and we've inspired a new generation of students to address them. I thank you all for coming. I thank the presenters for coming. We ordinarily would engage in a group hug at this point, but we're not going to have time for it, because you see we're already running to the bus. The plane is about to take off.